You might think that being special means you have lots of enemies. But what if I told you that the truly chosen ones actually have no enemies at all? Sounds crazy, right? Well, get ready, because I'm about to blow your mind. This isn't just some feel-good idea or a nice thought. It's a powerful truth that can completely change your life. Imagine waking up every day knowing that no one is against you. Picture a world where you don't have to watch your back or worry about who might be plotting against you. That's the reality for the chosen ones. And here's the kicker, you can be one of them. Now, you might be thinking, come on, that's impossible. Everyone has enemies. And I get it. That's what most people believe. We're taught from a young age that the world is full of people who are out to get us. We learn to be on guard, to protect ourselves, to fight back. But what if all of that was just unnecessary? What if it was all based on a big misunderstanding about how the world really works? That's what we're going to explore today. We're going to dig into this idea that the chosen ones have no enemies. We're going to look at why it's true, how it works, and most importantly, how you can start living this way too. Because here's the thing, being a chosen one isn't about being born special or being picked by some higher power. It's a choice. It's a way of seeing the world. And it's available to anyone who's willing to open their mind and try something new. So if you're tired of feeling like the world is against you, if you're exhausted from always being on the defensive, or if you're just curious about a totally different way of living, stick around. This might just be the most important thing you hear all day. And who knows? By the end of this, you might just realize that you've been a chosen one all along. Now, let's talk about what it really means to be a chosen one. Forget everything you've seen in movies or read in books. Being a chosen one isn't about having superpowers or being destined to save the world. It's much simpler and much more powerful than that. Being a chosen one is all about how you see the world. Imagine you're wearing a pair of glasses. These glasses color everything you see. If the glasses are dark, the world looks gloomy and threatening. If they're rose-colored, everything looks bright and cheerful. Well, being a chosen one is like putting on a special pair of glasses that lets you see the truth of the world. And when you see that truth, the whole idea of having enemies just disappears. But what is this truth? It's the understanding that we're all connected. Every single person you meet, every person you hear about on the news, every stranger on the street, they're all connected to you. They're all part of the same big picture. When you really get this, deep in your bones, how can you have enemies? It would be like your left hand declaring your right hand an enemy. It just doesn't make sense. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds nice, but it's not realistic. There are bad people out there. And you're right, there are people who do bad things. But chosen ones see past the actions to the person underneath. They understand that hurt people hurt people. They see that everyone, even those who seem to be enemies, are just trying their best with the knowledge and understanding they have. This doesn't mean chosen ones let people walk all over them. Far from it. They still set boundaries. They still stand up for what's right. But they do it from a place of understanding and compassion, not anger or fear. They respond to negativity with positivity, to hatred with love. Not because they're pushovers, but because they understand a deeper truth about how the world works. And here's the really exciting part. This way of seeing the world isn't just some philosophical idea. It actually changes how you experience life. When you stop seeing enemies everywhere, you stop being constantly on guard. You're able to relax, to open up, to enjoy life more fully. You start to see opportunities where you used to see threats. You begin to notice the good in people more than the bad. It's like the whole world becomes brighter and more welcoming. But don't just take my word for it. As we go through this, I want you to keep an open mind. Try on these ideas like you try on a new pair of glasses. See how the world looks through them. You might be surprised at what you discover. Let's talk about why most people think they have enemies. It's a mindset that's deeply ingrained in our culture. From a young age, we're taught to be wary of others. We learn to see the world as a competitive place where it's us against them. This idea is reinforced everywhere, in sports, in business, even in politics. We're constantly being told that there are people out there who want to take what's ours, who want to see us fail. And let's be honest, sometimes it really does feel that way. Maybe you've had someone betray your trust. Maybe you've been bullied or mistreated. Maybe you've watched someone else get ahead while you struggled. It's natural to feel hurt, angry, or threatened in these situations. It's easy to start seeing these people as enemies. But here's the thing, this mindset comes with a heavy price. When you go through life thinking you have enemies, you're constantly on edge. You're always looking over your shoulder, always waiting for the next attack. This creates a huge amount of stress and anxiety. It's like living in a state of constant low-level fear. And that fear affects everything: your health, your relationships, your ability to enjoy life. Think about it. When you believe someone is your enemy, how do you act around them? You're probably tense, defensive, maybe even hostile. And how do they respond to that? Probably with more negativity. It becomes a vicious cycle, each person's actions confirming the other's belief that they're enemies. Before you know it, you're caught in a web of negativity that's hard to escape. This enemy mindset also limits your opportunities. When you see others as potential threats, you miss out on potential friendships, collaborations, and learning experiences. You might avoid taking risks or trying new things because you're too focused on protecting yourself. In a way, having enemies becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect the worst from people, so that's what you get. But perhaps the biggest problem with having enemies is what it does to your inner world. When you're focused on enemies, you're living in a state of judgment and separation. You're constantly dividing the world into good people and bad people, us and them. This creates a sense of isolation. Even when you're with your people, there's always that underlying fear that they might become enemies too. Living this way is exhausting. It's like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. You might have gotten so used to it that you don't even notice it anymore, but it's weighing you down. It's sapping your energy, clouding your judgment, and robbing you of joy. But here's the good news: you don't have to live this way. There is another option, and that's what being a chosen one is all about. It's about putting down that heavy backpack of enemies and walking through life with a lighter step. It's about seeing the world in a way that eliminates the very concept of enemies. Now, I know this might sound impossible. You might be thinking of specific people in your life who you're sure are your enemies. You might be remembering times when you were hurt or betrayed, and those experiences are real. I'm not asking you to pretend they didn't happen. What I'm suggesting is a different way of understanding those experiences, a different way of relating to the people involved. In the next sections, we're going to explore exactly how chosen ones do this. We'll look at the specific mindsets and practices that allow them to live in a world without enemies. And I'll show you how you can start applying these ideas in your own life, starting today. Remember, this isn't about ignoring real problems or letting people mistreat you. It's about finding a more effective, more peaceful way of dealing with conflicts and challenges. It's about creating a life with less stress, more joy, and more genuine connections with others. So, are you ready to see the world through new eyes? Are you ready to explore what it means to live without enemies? Let's dive deeper into the chosen one's perspective and see how it can transform your life. Let's talk about how chosen ones see the world differently. It's like they've put on a special pair of glasses that lets them see a hidden truth about reality. And that truth changes everything. At the heart of this new perspective is the idea that we're all connected. Now, you've probably heard this before. It's a common saying in spiritual circles. But chosen ones don't just say it, they live it. They understand, deep in their bones, that every person they meet is like a different version of themselves. Think about that for a moment. Every person you see, the cashier at the store, your annoying neighbor, even that politician you can't stand, is you living a different life. They have different experiences, different beliefs, different struggles. But at their core, they're the same as you. They want to be happy. They want to feel safe and loved. They're doing the best they can with what they know. When you really get this, it becomes impossible to see anyone as an enemy. How can you hate someone when you recognize them as a part of yourself? It would be like your left hand declaring war on your right hand. It just doesn't make sense. This doesn't mean chosen ones agree with everyone or approve of every action. They still recognize when someone's behavior is harmful or wrong, but they see past the behavior to the person underneath. They understand that hurt people hurt people. They see that even the worst actions come from a place of pain, fear, or misunderstanding. This shift in perspective changes how chosen ones interact with the world. Instead of seeing threats, they see opportunities for connection. Instead of judging, they seek to understand. When someone acts in a way that might seem enemy-like, chosen ones don't take it personally. They recognize it as a cry for help, a sign of inner turmoil. And here's the really powerful part. This perspective doesn't just change how chosen ones see others. It changes how they see themselves. When you recognize the connection between all people, you start to see your own worth more clearly. You realize that you, too, are doing your best. You become more compassionate with yourself, more forgiving of your own mistakes. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch. It's more like growing a plant. It takes time, nurturing, and patience. But with practice, this new perspective can take root and flourish. And when it does, it transforms your entire experience of life. Now that we understand the big picture, let's dive into the first key to living without enemies: self-love. This might sound a bit cliché, but stick with me, because the way chosen ones approach self-love is probably different from what you're used to. When chosen ones talk about self-love, they're not talking about bubble baths and positive affirmations, though those can be nice. They're talking about a deep, unshakable acceptance of who you are, flaws and all. It's about recognizing your own worth, not because of what you do or what you have, but simply because you exist. Here's why this is so important. When you truly love yourself, you stop seeing others as threats. Think about it. Why do we usually see someone as an enemy? It's often because we feel they're challenging our worth in some way. Maybe they're competing with us for a job. Maybe they've criticized us. Maybe they have something we want. But when you have a solid foundation of self-love, none of that can shake you. You know your worth doesn't depend on beating someone else or gaining their approval. You're secure in who you are. So when someone acts in a way that might have previously seemed threatening, you can respond with curiosity and compassion instead of defensiveness. Self-love also helps you set healthy boundaries. This might seem counterintuitive. You might think that loving yourself means always putting yourself first. But chosen ones know that true self-love allows you to be generous and kind to others without letting them walk all over you. You can say no when you need to, not out of anger or fear, but out of respect for yourself and the other person. So how do you develop this kind of self-love? It starts with getting to know yourself. Chosen ones spend time in self-reflection. They pay attention to their thoughts, feelings, and reactions. They get curious about why they do what they do. And as they understand themselves better, they start to see their own inherent worth. Another crucial aspect of self-love is self-forgiveness. Chosen ones understand that everyone makes mistakes. Instead of beating themselves up over their errors, they see them as opportunities to learn and grow. They treat themselves with the same kindness and understanding they would offer a good friend. Self-love also involves taking care of yourself. This means nourishing your body with good food, getting enough rest, and engaging in activities that bring you joy. But it's not just about physical care. It's about honoring your emotions, respecting your own boundaries, and standing up for your values. As you develop self-love, you'll notice something amazing start to happen. The way you see others will begin to change. You'll start to recognize their struggles, their fears, their hopes, because you've learned to see and honor these things in yourself. You'll find it easier to respond to negativity with compassion because you've learned to be compassionate with yourself. And here's the really beautiful part. As you love yourself more, you'll find you have more love to give to others. It's like filling up your own cup first, so you can pour out to others without draining yourself. This abundance of love is what allows chosen ones to live in a world without enemies. They have so much love for themselves that it naturally overflows to everyone around them. Now that we've laid the foundation of self-love, let's move on to the second key: understanding others. This is where chosen ones really start to shift how they interact with the world around them. The core of this understanding is recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles. Every person you meet is carrying their own burden of fears, insecurities, and past hurts. Even the person who seems to have it all together, even the one who just cut you off in traffic, even the coworker who always seems to be out to get you. They're all dealing with their own struggles. Chosen ones make a practice of remembering this. When someone acts in a way that might seem hostile or unfair, instead of immediately labeling them as an enemy, they pause. They ask themselves, what might this person be going through? What pain or fear might be driving their actions? This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about seeing the full humanity in others, even when their actions are hurtful or wrong. It's about recognizing that most negative behavior comes from a place of pain, not evil. Think about it this way. Have you ever snapped at someone when you were having a really bad day? Maybe you were stressed about work, or worried about a family member, or just not feeling well. In that moment, your pain caused you to act in a way that might have seemed enemy-like to the other person. But you know that's not who you really are. You were just struggling. Chosen ones understand that this is true for everyone. The person who seems mean or aggressive, they might be dealing with chronic pain you can't see. The coworker who's always competing with you, they might have grown up never feeling good enough. The friend who betrayed your trust, they might be terrified of being abandoned. When you start to see others this way, it becomes much harder to view them as enemies. Instead, you start to see them as fellow human beings who are doing their best with the tools they have. You might not like their actions, but you can understand where they're coming from. This understanding doesn't just change how you see others, it changes how you respond to them. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness when someone acts negatively, you can respond with compassion. You can set boundaries firmly but kindly. You can choose to not take their actions personally, recognizing that their behavior says more about their inner state than about you. Developing this level of understanding takes practice. It's not always easy, especially when someone's actions are really hurtful. But chosen ones make it a habit to pause before reacting, to take a breath and remember that there's always more to the story than what they can see. They also practice active listening. When interacting with others, they focus on truly hearing what the other person is saying, rather than just waiting for their turn to speak. They ask questions to understand better. They try to put themselves in the other person's shoes. Another powerful practice is looking for the good in others. Chosen ones make a habit of noticing and appreciating the positive qualities in the people around them, even those they find challenging. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about maintaining a balanced perspective, recognizing that every person has both light and shadow within them. As you develop this understanding of others, you'll find that your world starts to change. People who once seemed like enemies start to look more like fellow travelers on life's journey. You'll find yourself feeling more connected, more compassionate, and ultimately, more at peace. Remember, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, something you cultivate day by day. There will be times when it's challenging, when your old patterns of seeing enemies want to reassert themselves. But with patience and persistence, this new way of understanding others can become your natural state. In the next section, we'll explore the third key to living without enemies, the power of forgiveness. This is where the rubber really meets the road, where chosen ones put their understanding into action in a way that can truly transform their lives and the lives of those around them. Let's dive into one of the most powerful tools in a chosen one's toolkit, forgiveness. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Forgiveness? That sounds nice, but it's not always easy, especially when someone has really hurt you. And you're right. Forgiveness isn't always easy, but it is always powerful. When chosen ones talk about forgiveness, they're not talking about letting people off the hook for bad behavior. They're not saying you should forget what happened or pretend it wasn't hurtful. Forgiveness, in this context, is about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment. Think of it this way. When you hold on to anger towards someone, who is it really hurting? Most of the time, the other person isn't affected at all. They might not even know you're angry. But you're carrying that anger around with you everywhere you go. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Chosen ones understand that forgiveness is an act of self-love. It's about choosing to release the negative emotions that are weighing you down. It's about deciding that your peace is more important than holding on to hurt. This doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everyone who's wronged you. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again or even have them in your life. Forgiveness is an internal process. It's about changing how you feel, not necessarily how you act. So how do chosen ones practice forgiveness? It starts with understanding. Remember what we talked about in the last section? Everyone is fighting their own battles. When someone hurts you, it's often because they're hurting themselves. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can make it easier to let go of anger. Chosen ones also practice putting themselves in the other person's shoes. They ask themselves, if I had lived that person's life, experienced what they've experienced, would I have acted differently? This doesn't mean they agree with the person's actions. It just helps them see the bigger picture. Another powerful forgiveness practice is focusing on what you've learned from the experience. Maybe a difficult situation taught you how strong you are. Maybe it helped you clarify your boundaries. Maybe it showed you who your true friends are. By focusing on these lessons, you can start to see even painful experiences as valuable. Chosen ones also understand that forgiveness is often a process, not a one-time event. They don't pressure themselves to forgive immediately. They allow themselves to feel their emotions fully. But they also commit to working towards forgiveness, bit by bit, day by day. One powerful technique is to wish the person well. This might sound impossible at first, especially if you're dealing with someone who's really hurt you. But chosen ones know that wishing someone well doesn't mean you approve of their actions. It's about choosing to put more positivity into the world rather than more negativity. As you practice forgiveness, you'll likely notice some amazing changes. The weight of anger and resentment will start to lift. You'll find more peace in your daily life. And most importantly, you'll stop seeing the world in terms of enemies and allies. You'll start to see everyone as human beings, capable of both mistakes and growth. Now we come to a key that really sets chosen ones apart. Their ability to see every challenging person or situation as a teacher, not an enemy. This shift in perspective is like putting on a pair of magical glasses that transform the entire world. Chosen ones understand that life is constantly offering us opportunities to learn and grow. Every difficult person, every challenging situation is actually a custom-made lesson just for you. It's like the universe is running a personalized growth program tailored specifically to what you need to learn. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how certain types of people or situations seem to show up in your life over and over again? Maybe you keep encountering bossy people who try to control you. Or maybe you frequently find yourself in situations where you feel unappreciated. Chosen ones see these patterns not as bad luck, but as invitations to grow. When faced with a difficult person, instead of thinking, "Why is this person attacking me?" Chosen ones ask, "What is this person here to teach me?" Maybe that bossy coworker is giving you a chance to practice setting boundaries. Maybe that friend who always needs your help is teaching you about balance and self-care. This perspective doesn't just apply to people. Chosen ones see every challenging situation as a growth opportunity. Lost your job? Maybe it's a chance to explore what you really want to do with your life. Car broke down? Perhaps it's an opportunity to practice patience and problem solving. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but some situations are just bad. Some people are just toxic. And you're right, there are situations that are genuinely harmful, and there are people whose behavior is truly toxic. Chosen ones aren't suggesting you should stay in abusive situations or tolerate harmful behavior, but they do believe that even in these extreme cases, there's something to be learned. Maybe the lesson is about trusting your instincts. Maybe it's about the importance of self-respect. Maybe it's about the power of walking away. Whatever the lesson, chosen ones know that by focusing on what they can learn, they reclaim their power. They turn even the most difficult experiences into opportunities for growth. This mindset is incredibly empowering. When you see everything as a lesson, you're never a victim. You're always a student, always growing, always becoming a better version of yourself. You start to welcome challenges because you know they're making you stronger, wiser, more compassionate. So how do chosen ones cultivate this mindset? It starts with curiosity. When they encounter a difficult person or situation, they get curious. They ask themselves, what could I learn from this? How might this help me grow? They also practice reframing. Instead of saying, this person is so annoying, they might say, this person is giving me a chance to practice patience. Instead of thinking, this situation is terrible, they might think, this situation is challenging me to be creative and resilient. Another powerful practice is looking for the gift in every situation. Even in the most difficult circumstances, there's usually something positive to be found. Maybe a setback gives you more time with your family. Maybe a conflict helps you clarify your values. Chosen ones make a habit of looking for these hidden gifts. As you start to see everything as a lesson, you'll notice some amazing changes. You'll become more resilient, bouncing back quickly from setbacks. You'll feel more empowered, knowing that you can learn and grow from any situation. And most importantly, you'll stop seeing the world in terms of enemies and threats. Instead, you'll see a world full of teachers and growth opportunities. Now that we've explored the 4 keys to living without enemies, let's talk about how you can start putting these ideas into practice in your daily life. Remember, becoming a chosen one isn't something that happens overnight. It's a journey, a process of gradually shifting your perspective and habits. Here are some practical tips to help you on that journey. Start your day with intention. Each morning, take a few moments to set your intention for the day. Remind yourself that you're choosing to see the world without enemies. You might say something like, today, I choose to see everyone I meet as a fellow human being, doing their best with what they know. Practice the pause. When you encounter a challenging person or situation, pause before reacting. Take a deep breath. This small pause can give you the space to choose your response, rather than reacting automatically. Ask empowering questions. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of, what's wrong with this person? Ask, what might this person be struggling with? Look for the good. Make it a habit to notice and appreciate the positive qualities in others, even those you find challenging. Try to find at least one good thing about every person you interact with. Practice self-compassion. Remember, self-love is the foundation of living without enemies. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a good friend. Keep a growth journal. At the end of each day, write down one thing you learned or one way you grew. This helps reinforce the idea that everything is a lesson. Use affirmations. Regularly remind yourself of your chosen perspective. You might say things like, I am connected to all beings, or every person I meet is my teacher. Practice forgiveness daily. Each night, think of anyone you're holding resentment towards. Wish them well. Remember, this is for your benefit, not theirs. Seek to understand. When someone upsets you, try to understand their perspective. Ask yourself, what might be going on in their life to make them act this way? Surround yourself with support. Share your journey with friends who understand and support your goals. Having a community can make a big difference. Be patient with yourself. Remember, this is a process. There will be days when it's challenging. That's okay. Every difficulty is just another opportunity to practice. Celebrate small wins. Notice and celebrate the moments when you successfully shift your perspective. Maybe you responded with compassion instead of anger, or you found a lesson in a difficult situation. These small wins add up over time. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's progress. Every time you choose understanding over judgment, every time you see a lesson instead of an attack, you're taking a step on the path of the chosen ones. And with each step, you're creating a more peaceful, more connected life for yourself and everyone around you. As we wrap up our exploration of living without enemies, I want you to take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed. We've covered a lot of ground, from the power of self-love to the practice of seeing lessons in every situation. These aren't just nice ideas or philosophical concepts. They're practical tools that can radically transform your life. Remember, being a chosen one isn't about being perfect. It's not about never feeling angry or hurt. It's about choosing, again and again, to see the world through eyes of understanding and compassion. It's about recognizing the deep connection between all beings and living from that place of connection. This path isn't always easy. There will be times when it feels challenging, when your old patterns of seeing enemies want to reassert themselves. That's okay. Every challenge is just another opportunity to practice, to grow, to choose again. But as you continue on this journey, you'll likely start to notice some amazing changes. You might find that your relationships become deeper and more authentic. You might discover a newfound sense of peace and ease in your daily life. You might even start to see opportunities and possibilities where you once saw only obstacles. Most importantly, you'll be contributing to a more compassionate, more connected world. Every time you choose understanding over judgment, every time you respond with kindness instead of hostility, you're putting more love into the world. And in a world that often seems divided and conflicted, that's a powerful gift. So I invite you to embrace your status as a chosen one. Remember, this isn't something that's bestowed upon you by someone else. It's a choice you make every day to see the world differently, to live without enemies, to recognize the humanity in every person you meet. As you go forward from here, carry these ideas with you. Practice them in your daily life. Share them with others when it feels right. And always remember, you are chosen, not because you're special or better than anyone else, but because you've chosen to see the world through eyes of love and understanding. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May your path be filled with growth, understanding, and the profound peace that comes from living without enemies.